A final from Oklahoma City where the Mavs even up the series. Check out Tim Hardaway Jr. top of your screen, gathers the loose ball, hits the three. Dallas made 18 threes in this game, 49% from beyond the arc. That's a podcast you should download and follow today, Beyond the Arc. Get it wherever you get your podcasts. Oklahoma City gave all they could in the end, but Dallas wins this one 119-110. P.J. Washington with 29 and 11. He hit 7 of the 18 threes. Luka Doncic, 29 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists. He had 5 threes in this game, and he really set the tone in the first quarter. And how about Tim Hardaway Jr.? 17 points off the bench. He went on a 10-0 run all by himself in the third quarter, really starting to pull away. But look, OKC's not going anywhere. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander goes for 33 and 12, 8 assists. That's pretty impressive when you consider he's the first Thunder with 30 and 10 in a playoff game since Paul George in 2019. But we have a series tied at 1 game apiece. And for more, welcome in CBS Sports NBA analyst John Gonzales. And John, what a game 2 this was for the Mavs. They bounced back. You remember after game 1, Luka Doncic was asked about his poor shooting. He said, quote, "Who cares? We lost. We got to move on to the next one," end quote. Well, he comes out in the first quarter, sets the tone, 16 first quarter points on 6 of 8. And really what I want to ask you about is the three-point shooting, because this is incredible. His past 4 playoff games before tonight, he was 5 of 35. Tonight, 5 of 8. What was different for Luka seeing the basketball go in the hoop finally for him from beyond the arc? Because, to be quite honest, he was putrid from beyond the arc the entire playoffs.
Yeah, he needed this one, right? I mean, like, as you mentioned, the last 4 games from distance, he was horrendous. Game 1 against Oklahoma City, he was horrendous. And then tonight just started falling for him. And that happens sometimes with shooters, right? I mean, he's an offensive juggernaut for a reason. Sometimes the ball doesn't go down. Jason Tatum is experiencing the same thing for the Boston Celtics right now. Sometimes you just got to work your way out of it. And he certainly did tonight. He bounced back in a big, big way, as did the entire Mavericks team, really. And especially P.J. Washington, who was also awesome from 3. He had 7 of 11 from 3, had a playoff career high 29. But the team as a whole shot 48.6% from 3, and Luka really needed this. If he had another bad shooting night tonight, they go down 0-2 against Oklahoma City, going back to Dallas. Now all of a sudden you're up against it, rocking a hard place. Instead, now all of a sudden the Mavs control the series.
Yeah, and you mentioned P.J. Washington. He and Luka Doncic are the first teammates with 5 threes, 10 rebounds each in the same playoff game in NBA history. What got into P.J. Washington, John Gonzales?
Yeah, great question. P.J. Washington, I love him. When they traded for him and Daniel Gafford and inserted both of them into the starting lineup, their defense immediately got better. I'm a big proponent of his. I don't think anybody, including up to and especially P.J. Washington, expected him to make 7 of his 11 three-pointers tonight. He can shoot the 3. He can be pretty good at it. But this is not necessarily his game where he's just spotted up and they're going to decide to have him take 11 of them. But he was so good tonight, and they needed every one of those. It really got him going. It got the Mavs going, and now, like I said, they're back in the series.
What would you say was the difference here in Game 2 for Dallas?
Three-point shooting, absolutely. I mean, on a night especially when Kyrie Irving did not have it going, he only had 9 points on 8 shots. Very uncharacteristic for Kyrie offensively. Now, he was a great distributor tonight, got 11 assists from him, but you needed those secondary guys. The other night, I think we were talking about, who steps up and helps out Kyrie and Luka Doncic. In Game 1, it was Daniel Gafford. Tonight in Game 2, it was P.J. Washington. And then also Tim Hardaway Jr., back from the dead. Not dead yet, right? I mean, no. Game 1, he only had 2 points. Tonight, all of a sudden, he played really well. 19 minutes off the bench, 17 points, sort of a little microwave bench boost for them tonight. But yeah, the three-point shooting was huge for them.
Yeah, he went on a 10-0 run all by himself in the third quarter that really lifted Dallas. He comes into the game and gives them a nice spurt, and you saw him hit a big 3 on a second chance, and he goes for 17 points off the bench. A huge, huge impact here in Game 3 for Dallas. Okay, we've watched 2 games, John, in this series. How are you evaluating this series now after 2 games all tied up at 1 game apiece?
I thought it was going to be a really good series before we got going. Oklahoma City obviously came out of the gates hot in game one, and I kind of expected the Mavs to respond in game two. I thought that they looked better than I expected, though. They really did. And Oklahoma City, look, this is a really good team, the Mavs that they're playing. I think it's going to be a good series. I picked it to go 7. I have Oklahoma City to win it in 7. They've been the best team in the Western Conference all season long, despite their age, despite their inexperience. I think they answered a lot of those questions. Only one of 2 teams that have a top 4 offense and defense in the NBA, just them and the Celtics this season during the regular season. So ultimately, I think we're in for the long haul here, Keem.
Yeah, and how about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the loss? I mean, he goes for 30 points. He had 29 in game 1, and here in game 2 he goes for 30. He was incredible, but what was different? What was wrong? What went wrong for OKC here in game 2? Because the turnovers were a little bit of a problem. They didn't knock down some of the shots they normally make, because you can't just rely on SGA to get it done. I mean, Chet Holmgren didn't have a great game. When you look back at this game 2, what will you look back and say this is why they probably lost?
Yeah, I mean, they live off of forcing turnovers. In game 1, they did a really good job of forcing turnovers on the Mavs, which is uncharacteristic for the Mavs, because they've during the regular season, they were actually really good at taking care of the ball. And part of that is owed to the fact that they love to go ISO with Kyrie and Luka, and they don't move the ball quite as much. But OKC is just so active defensively. They get into those passing lanes, and tonight they really had a problem with that. There was only 9 turnovers for Dallas. They didn't get out in transition. Dallas did a really good job limiting them. And then, as you mentioned, SGA is just phenomenal. There's a reason why he finished second in the MVP voting. He was, 2 assists away from a triple-double. But tonight, the rest of the team didn't come with him. Chet Holmgren had an off night. Jalen Williams was fine. Josh Giddey was unplayable. They had to go to Aaron Wiggins to start the second half. And that's actually kind of been something that you knew was going to be a problem for them in the postseason, what they were going to do about Josh Giddey in those minutes. Lu Dort, awesome defensive player, but they're going to need a little bit more from him offensively. So, yeah, it was pretty much just SGA not being able to really turn the Mavs over and get out in transition.
Yeah, and it's hard to defend 18 made threes as well. And that's exactly what the Mavs do, knocking down 18 threes in this game 2 to even up the series. The big 3 in Phoenix was a bust in year 1, and the fall guy is the head coach. On Thursday, the Suns fired Frank Vogel after just 1 season with the team. Phoenix had the 3rd highest payroll in the league this year with Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal, but you don't always get what you pay for. The Suns got swept in the first round by the Timberwolves. Phoenix will be hiring its 3rd head coach in 3 years, and former Bucks head coach Mike Budenholzer has emerged as the frontrunner. John, what do you think of the potential fit Budenholzer to replace Vogel in Phoenix?
Yeah, I like Bud, but I don't think that Frank Vogel was the problem here, right? I mean, this isn't a failure of Frank Vogel's coaching ability. They won 49 games. The guy has a championship in his pocket. They just looked around and went, all right, well, we can't change a lot of other things. They're really handicapped, Keem, because of what you said in terms of how expensive they were this season. It's only going to get worse with the new rules. They're going to be in the second apron next year, which means that they're really restricted in how they can bring other guys in on their team. Not to get too into the weeds on it, but basically they're resigned to only signing minimum contract players. Then they've got Bradley Beal. You'd love to be able to move Bradley Beal. You can't, because for some reason they let him come from Washington with his no trade clause intact. You're not going to move Devin Booker because he's young in his prime and he's the face of the franchise. You probably don't want to move KD because you gave up all those assets and all that draft capital to pry him away from Brooklyn when everything went south with the Nets. So what's that really leave you? You change the coach, you shrug, and you bring in Mike Budenholzer, and you go, all right, well, I guess we'll run it back with this personnel, and we'll cross our fingers that Budenholzer can figure out a way to make them, I don't know, not an awful, absolute disaster in the fourth quarter like they were this season. That's basically the only lever they had available for them to pull.
Well, if Mike Budenholzer is hired by the Suns, he'd be the first head coach to coach the franchise he defeated in an NBA Finals since Phil Jackson. Budenholzer and the Bucks beat the Suns in the 2021 NBA Finals. John Gonzales here on CBS Sports HQ, and John Gonzales on Beyond the Arc podcast. Download and follow today. Join John Gonzales, Bill Wright, and Ashley Nicole Moss, breaking down all the big playoff storylines and all things NBA. It's Beyond the Arc. Download and follow today. Coming up, Luka and the Mavs go even Steven in Oklahoma City to tie up the series at 1 game apiece. Full highlights, and we'll hear from the coaches and the players next here on CBS Sports HQ.